Hello and welcome. My name is Jago Manga, and in this video I'm excited to start talking about float and doubles. So first of all, what is a float? So a float is a data type that you use to store floating numbers. What is a floating number? A floating number can be illustrated by an example. So think of a number like this. This number is a float. Is a float because it has this decimal place. So since it has a decimal place, then it is best to be stored in a data type that's known as a float. So you can use a float by simply declaring it as, just like we did with integers, write the word float and give it a name. So for example, I'll just call this my float, and I'll say my float is equal to that, right? And I can now print it out and say my float, just like that, and this line. So when I try to print to compile and run this, I'm expecting to get this the value here. So you can see, maybe let me just create out. You can see that it is bringing out that number that we have just given it. So equally, you can use a double. A double is also used for the same purpose. So when you try to do that, let me just have a float here, and let me have a double exactly like this, but then the data type itself, this one now will be a double, and I'll call this my double. You know, you can't have two variables with the same name declared like that in the same scope. So like this, now I'm saying double, and when I try to print out the double and say my double and that line, I'm expecting to print out the same thing, because both a double and a float work in the same way. They are all used to store numbers with floating points, and what a float is numbers with the points like this. But then these two are different. We can determine the difference, or we can note the difference by getting the size of it. By size is how much space is it taking in the memory or in the RAM. So a float, usually on most operating systems, it takes up about 4, while a double usually takes up about 8 on most 64-bit computers. So I can just get the value just to prove by saying size of, and I can write the name of the variable. So I'll cut it out first of all, and the size of, and write it like this. So try to do this maybe if you want to find out like what's the size of a float and a double on your computer, and it may be different from what you may say here, because we are using different computers. So I'll try to compare and run this. It says 4, which is, let me just create it out so that you can be able to see query. It says 4, which is for float here, and it says 8 for the double. So a double and a float are different, because this one takes up about 4 bytes, while this one takes about 8 bytes. And as you might have already guessed, a float takes can accommodate, a double can accommodate a lot of numbers, big numbers, than what a float can. So that's the difference between a float and a double, but both of them, they can be used in the same way. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.